What is up, YouTube? EOS here, back at it again with another programming video. Today, we're going to be building a simple ERA calculator, which takes in user input, and then we calculate the ERA based on the user input. So I did this video in another take, and my big fat head was obstructing some of the outputs. So at the end of this video, I will be rerunning my outputs just so you guys can see what the outputs will actually be in the video. And so yeah, without further ado, make sure to like, comment, subscribe, absolutely smash that notification bell. We're on the road to 500 subscribers, and I will be dropping that roommate reveal. All right, all right, let's get into some of these specifications. So we're going to write a Java program that calculates and outputs a baseball pitcher's ERA in a reasonable report format. ERA is an acronym for earned run average, for those who didn't know, like me, and is computed using the following equation. So it's number of runs earned multiplied by 9 and divided by number of innings pitched. So this is our formula on how we're going to calculate our ERA. And so our program has to do the following things. We're going to ask the user for their first and last name and store these two variables in type string. So first name will be a variable and last name will also be a variable. Then we're going to ask the user for number of earned runs and then store that in a variable of type int. Then we're going to ask the user for number of innings pitched and store in type int. Then we're going to do the calculation up here to calculate and output the pitcher's ERA, which should be type double. Okay, so this is a sample run that they give us. So we're going to get the pitcher's first name, in this case it's Josh. Then we're going to get the last name, which is harder. Number of earned runs is 22. Number of innings pitched is 81. So these are numbers that we are going to input, and same thing with the name. So we input the names, then it outputs the names that we told it to. Then this calculation will be done. So I'm assuming that number of runs will be multiplied by 9, and then it will be divided by 81, which will give us this number. So let's try to code this up. So the important thing, well, actually, let's go to File, New, Java Project. Wait for this to load. Nice. Let's do program 03 YT. Do YT for tutorial. Now that we have program 3 made, we can right click and go to New Class, and we'll name this ERA calculator. We'll just do ERA calc. We'll turn this main method on and then press finish. Okay, great. Now I just like to delete this comment. I like to put these braces in line. And let's get started with the program. So the first thing we're going to have to do is we actually have to import our scanner. Anytime we want user input, we're going to have to use what's called a scanner. And so to import our scanner, we're going to do import java.util. You could do util.star, which inputs everything, but we'll just do java.util.scanner. End it with a semicolon, just like this. Now we have a scanner. Now we have our scanner imported, but we have to put the scanner inside our main method. Remember, the main method is inside these two curly braces, and it's everything under the public static void main string args. This is what's called our main method, and everything that we're going to do, it will be contained inside this main method. So we have to first initialize our scanner. So remember how we have types? We have int, string, double, boolean. Well, scanner is actually its own type, which is called type scanner. So just like we do with the variable, we're going to start with the type of the variable, so scanner. And then we'll give the scanner a random name. So this is type scanner, and then the name will just be Bob. I'm just going to use a human name just because it might be a little easier to understand the next parts of the scanner as we move forward. We're going to set this equal to a new scanner. And then in parentheses, system dot int. We're going to end this with a semicolon, and boom, we just made a new scanner named Bob. So anytime you want to initialize a scanner, you're going to have to do scanner, then the name of whatever your scanner will be equals new scanner system.in. So this is the basic syntax of making a scanner. So let's get started with the first part of our program. So let's go back to the parameters real quick. And let's remember that we need to store the first and last name in a variable of type string. We also need to store number of earned runs and number of inning pitched in a variable of type int. So we can start by making these variables up at the top here. And so we'll do string. We'll do p first. This will be for the player's first name. Oops, there we go. And then we'll do string p last. This will be the player's last name. Very creative, I know. So then we'll need to store number of innings pitched in an int variable or in a variable of type int. So we'll just do innings pitched. I'll make this lowercase. I'm using kind of longer names just so we can just so people can follow along easier. And then we'll make another variable for number of runs. Again, I'm making these a little longer than they need to be. So the first thing we're going to do is we actually have to get the input from the user. So remember, these variables are just initialized and they do not have a value, but the user is who actually gives them value. And we're going to use the scanner to allow the user to give this value to player first. So let's go over one. So we're going to do system.out.print. And then we'll do pitcher's first name. Just like this. And then at the bottom, we're going to do p first equals Bob dot next. Bob dot next. Okay. So all this code is doing right now is we're printing out the pitcher's first name, then we're going to wait for the user to input it, and then the value of player first will be equal to Bob.next. Now, what Bob.next actually does is it just takes the value that we input and set it equal to player first. So Bob is the name of our scanner, which means that we're setting player first equal to whatever the user puts into the scanner. In this case, the scanner's name is Bob. So let's try one more example with the last name. Out.print. Oops, yep. And then we're going to do the same thing here. P last equals Bob dot next. Oops. All right. So now we're going to ask for the pitcher's first name, and then it's going to give you the option to type in. Actually, let's just run it. So pitcher's first name, we'll just say Sam. So when we enter Sam here, Bob equals next int is actually just going to be Sam. So pitcher's first will be Sam. Then if we enter the last name, we'll do Sam. I'm literally just making up a random name, Sam Jones. Shout out to Sam Jones. The new value of player last will be Jones. So we'll see at the end of this program how this works all together. So let's close up the console to get some more room. Now let's do inputting the number of runs. So system dot out, dot print. What should I say? Number of runs? Yeah, number of runs. We'll collect the user input the same way we did with bob.next. Because this is type int that we're collecting, because we need the number of runs here, we're going to do bob.next int. So for strings, we can do bob.next, but for ints, we're going to do bob.next int because we're collecting an integer. So we'll do number of runs equals bob.next int. And it gives you the option right here in Java, but I'll just type it out. int. With scanners, it's a little tricky because you will have to use a capital I for int, even though the variable is lowercase I. So it's a little confusing, I know, but once you do this a couple times, you'll get it down like second nature. So one more time, because we're going to have to get the number of innings pitched. So we'll do system dot out dot print number of innings pitched. And we'll do the same thing here. So innings pitched. Oops. Equals bob.next int. Oops. There we go. Okay, awesome. So now we're collecting the player's first name from the user. We're collecting their last name from the user. We're also collecting the number of runs and innings pitched. Well, the last thing we need to do is make the ERA calculation. So how we're going to do this is ERA, remember, ERA needs to be type double. So the first thing we're going to do is initialize the ERA and then set it equal to, I think it was number of runs times 9 divided by innings pitched. So what we're going to do is double ERA equals number of runs times 9, and we'll actually use some parentheses here because we're doing some math, which is so fun, divided by innings pitched All right, so now that we have our ERA calculation, now we can print everything to the screen. So we can just do system dot out dot print then we'll do ln, and we'll print these in different statements just so we can see how everything works. So system.out.print ln, player first, so P first, then we'll system.out.print P last, oops. Players first, player last, and then we'll do system.out.print ln has an ERA of plus ERA. And let's see if this works. Okay, so we're going to need to type in the pitcher's first name. So remember, we're typing in the pitcher's first name, and what should happen is the pitcher's first name, whatever we type in, will turn into the value of P first, and then P first will be printed in the screen here. So player's first name, let's do Vince. Shout out Vince. And pitcher's last name, let's do Alex. Vince Alex. Shout out to Alex if you're watching this. Shout out to Vince if you're also watching this. All right, number of runs. Let's say they had 50 runs. I don't even know if that's realistic in baseball. Let's just say it is. Number of innings pitched. Let's say they had 80 innings pitched. Man, I have zero idea if that's even realistic in baseball. Okay. So it looks like Vince Alex has an ERA of 5.0. Well, it looks like it outputted in type double. Let's try one more time. Let's try doing the sample output, which was Josh Harder, and then we'll do 22 and 81. And let's see if that works. So let's run this one more time. So Josh Harder, 22, and I think it was 81. Let's check one more time. 81. 81. Josh Harder has an ERA of 2.0. But this ERA was 2.4 repeating, 2.4 repeating. So it looks like we messed up a little bit. And I think it's because we're doing integer division here, because both of these are type int. So we could actually typecast this output to type double with 1B. And let's see if that changes anything, because I think that might be the reason why. Let's do it. Josh Harder, 22, 81, and boom. There we go, guys. So it looks like we got the correct output. So what's happening in this code? And maybe I could even write some comments. So we made a new scanner named Bob. Then we made a variable to hold player first name, to hold the players Then we made a variable to hold the player's last name, and then we made one for innings pitched and number of runs. So right here, these 4 lines of code are just to make variables to hold things. Oh, sorry, these 4 lines of code. These 4 lines of code are to make variables to hold things. This line is to make the scanner. So we made a scanner, we made a variable to hold the first name, a variable to hold the last name, and then we made a variable to hold the number of innings pitched and the number of runs. Now we're allowing the user to determine we're allowing the user to determine these variables up here that we made. So we're going to allow the user to choose the player's first name. We're able to allow the user to choose this because we're using a scanner and using the .next function. So basically Bob will collect the next string that is put in here and set that equal to player's first name. So Bob is getting the string and setting it equal to player first name. Then Bob is getting the next string and setting it equal to player last name. So we're allowing the user to determine the last name. I might have spelled that wrong, but I turned spell check off for that very reason. We're doing the same thing here with number of runs and innings pitched. The only difference is that we're collecting the integer and setting the integer equal to number of runs. So we're allowing them, the user, to determine the number of runs. And then we're allowing the user to the number of innings pitched. After we determine the number of runs and number of innings pitched, we are going to calculate their ERA using this formula. So calculate the ERA of the player while also changing the type to double. So we're changing this to type double by using typecasting. The reason we're using typecasting is because we want our output to be type double. Currently, this is integer division. And we want to use floating point division, so we can typecast this entire thing as double. And let's actually experiment right here. We could change this to 9.0 and see if that also works. So we'll do Josh Harder 9. Oops, it was 8. No, it was 2281. And this will also work. So as long as there's one double inside of integer division, everything will be changed to type double. So we don't need to typecast to type double. We could just use 9.0. Either way will work just fine. The last thing we did is just print out the player's first name, the player's last name, and their ERA. All right. So once again, new scanner, initialize some variables. Then we allowed the user to determine the value of these variables. After that, we calculated the ERA with the number of runs and the innings pitched that we collected, and then we printed them to the screen. All right, guys, I'm just going to run some of the outputs again just so you can see it. So let's just press run here. I moved my camera out of the way because before I was blocked like this and you guys couldn't see anything. So now I'm back over here. So the pitcher's first name, we're just going to do Josh, just like the example, and then Harder, I think it was. And then the number of runs that this player had was 22 in the sample output. He had 22 runs and then he pitched 81 innings. And you should have an ERA of 2.4 repeating, which is correct. And then this applies to anything. So these aren't just like, we could take in any parameter here. So let's say the pitcher's first name is, I think I used Vince in the last one. So let's do Vince again. Shout out to Vince. Let's do the pitcher's last name. Let's do Alex. Shout out to Alex. And then let's say this player, Vince Alex, had 89 runs. I don't know if this is realistic. And he had a ton of innings pitched. This dude pitched 1 billion innings. That's not even a billions. So you see it still does a calculation based on these two numbers here. And then it'll give you the player's first and last name. So we could type in any first name here, any last name here, and then the runs and the innings pitched, and it'll give us a calculation. So that's basically all this program is doing. I just had to move my head out of the way. Anyways, if you guys are liking the content, make sure to like, comment, subscribe, absolutely smash that notification bell, and I'll see you in the next one.